Hello, this is J9LP, and well, I'm not going to pretend that this is going to be a regular views on news in any sense of the word, because this is going to be one bit of news that I saw pretty much this morning, and it came as a bit of a shock to me, although I kind of saw it coming. I just didn't expect it to be this soon, and it's news of a rather tragic nature, as I'm sure you all know by now. Nintendo's president, Satoru Iwata, had passed away over the weekend, and it was on the 11th of July, Saturday, 2015 this year. And this was from a bile duct growth, which he had treated last year. He actually decided not to come to E3 that year to have a treatment for his bile duct growth, which seemingly went well. Unfortunately, there's a kind of a low chance of actual recovery from that. I think it's something like 15% success rate, and the most you would get out of that was 5-year life extension, really. So it was kind of fatal either way. It's a very rare chance for a complete recovery from that. So we were kind of waiting for it to happen, especially when we found out that he wasn't coming to E3 this year. And he was purportedly still working hard at Nintendo, very much alive. He even took the time after this year's digital event to actually apologize for it and to say that we've heard the voices and we promise to do better next time. So this comes honestly at a bit of a weird time for me, because on Saturday I was actually at a convention where Nintendo's latest products were actually being showcased, and that was Hyper Japan at the O2 Dome in the Greenwich Peninsula, and I had a great time there. I mean, I did actually go there to sample some of the because what this show is about, I think I might have told you before, is a show that's sort of centered around modern and sometimes traditional Japanese culture, but mostly modern Japanese culture. So you've got stuff there like Japanese cuisine, you've got, of course, all the otaku stuff like anime and cosplays and pop idol performances, live performances on there, demonstration of things like, creative arts and martial arts and stuff like that. And they also had a game section in which there was a few Japanese games companies present there, which was Capcom, Namco, and Nintendo. And Nintendo had a pretty big booth there. They were actually showcasing not just the latest games that came out, like Yoshi's Woolly World and Splatoon and all of that, but also games that were actually, some of the games that were actually at E3. They had Star Fox Zero there, and they had Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, and they also had Mario Maker, which was like the big game there. There was a Twitch stream of the competition with the games there. So I had a great time there. That was on the Saturday, but that came after a bit of news that I got from my mum, which was our neighbour. Her brother Cliff had passed away, and he died to cancer as well, which, I was kind of distraught by the news. I thought, that is really terrible. And it came at a bit of an awkward time because, as I said, I was going off to Hyper Japan at that time. But when I got back, I definitely made a note to go out and get some flowers for her, and my sister bought a card, and we all, the whole family, signed it to actually give to her and offer our condolences. So all that time I didn't actually hear anything about Satoru Iwata's death until this morning, after a pretty scary night, because on all complete honesty, I wasn't feeling particularly in top shape. I was kind of a bit hot out there, even though I just walked down the road, and I had pains everywhere. So I decided, to try and recover from this, I decided just to get a lot of water and just have an early night. So I didn't really do anything back then. I don't know if it was something I ate. I mean, I did have some onigiri over at Hyper Japan. It was kind of open, so that it might have been something I ate over there that made me not feel particularly well. But even then, I still made an effort to get those flowers. So there was, stuff like that, and the events that followed just kind of reminded me of the fragility of life, and how we need to cherish life and live it to the fullest, and do the best you can for your friends and your family and your loved ones. And I think Iwata had that kind of philosophy for his company and his employees and even his customers. When he talked to the customers through his Nintendo Direct and so on and stuff like that, he was talking, I might as well say it, directly to them, with the enthusiasm of the products that he was selling, and the stuff that he was eager for people to try out and buy, really. So there was that, and like I said, he also obviously had a care for his employees. He famously took a pretty sizable pay cut in around 2013, I think it was, when the sales failed of the Wii U and sort of the slowdown of the 3DS kind of cut into the company's profits. And rather than doing what probably most other heads of companies would do, is to basically lay off a few staff and do some restructuring and whatever, he actually cut his salary in half to try and avoid any staff layoffs. He believed in his staff, his developers. Indeed, he was a developer himself. He started off programming games on a pocket calculator, and later on he joined HAL Labs and helped create Balloon Fight, which is kind of interesting because the Balloon Fight, I forget what it's called now, but the Balloon Fight game in Nintendo Land is probably one of my most played games in Nintendo Land. I think it's actually a pretty awesome sort of use of the gamepad, which was kind of interesting because Balloon Fight was also another one of my most played sort of NES games at the time. He also helped program Kirby's Adventure and Earthbound. And one of his crowning achievements actually was he essentially managed to cram almost an entire country into a Pokemon game. Pokemon Gold and Silver was just going to be the Johto region, and he had actually managed to find time to make a pretty hefty compression routine to actually fit in a whole other region in the game, the Kanto region. So after you've completed the Johto region, you've got a ticket to actually visit the Kanto region. Basically had, the two different games pretty much in one in that sense. So that was pretty awesome. He also took some time to actually squeeze out a bit of a debugging session for Super Smash Bros. Melee for it to be released on time. He did the same with Earthbound as well, actually. He managed to... There was a point where they didn't think they were going to get... They had a version that wasn't really working that well. And he basically said, well, you can take, this long, which is about, I think it was like 3 months or something like that, to adapt the code to get it working, or I can just do it from scratch within 3 weeks. Obviously, they chose the latter option, and, it worked out better from there. So, he did a lot. He had very much an enthusiasm for games. Another famous thing he said was in a keynote for, I think it was GDC in 2002, and he held up his business card, and he said, on my business card, I'm a corporate president, but in my mind, I am a developer, but in my heart, I am a gamer. And that's not to say other heads of companies and CEOs that aren't gamers. I'm not saying that at all, but he pretty much covered the whole kind of gambit of building the game from scratch. So he knew about that, and even playtesting games and playing games in his spare time. He always found time to play a bit of Balloon Fight. And he cared about gaming. He cared about, the joy that gaming gives to his customers. And so he goes out of his way to make sure that we get fun and quality games to people. Mostly that work, and that's certainly the aim. Sometimes the games don't always work out that well, but most of the time they do. The strict quality control that they have there always works out for the better for us gamers. And so, to have that kind of commitment to getting quality products out there is nothing to be sniffed at. And, Iwata's contribution to the games industry is certainly nothing to be sniffed at either. On top of that, he was just a very personable man. He was a really kind and gentle and humble person. He wasn't just, a good corporate president. He was, a fun guy. He never took himself seriously, although he obviously did take things seriously at the appropriate moments, but for the most part, he knew how to laugh at himself. He had the whole holding the banana thing going, and of course that awesome Smash Bros. Showdown with Reggie in 2014. All that stuff like that, even while he was suffering, that he kind of brought a cheer to Nintendo fans, as well as some gamers outside of that. And he left behind a fantastic legacy. I think Nintendo has been all the better with his leadership. True, some of his decisions have been questionable at best, and it did lead to a fat downfall of some of his products, but even then, he didn't just jettison them, he was proud of them. While I was at Hyper Japan, they actually showcased the few generations of consoles, and they had the NES, which obviously is the one they started with. They had the Super Nintendo, of course. They had the Game Boy, and they had the Wii U. And I suppose some of you might think, oh, hang on a minute, the Wii U, what's to be proud of that? I mean, shouldn't the Wii be there? I'd probably be more proud of that, because that's the one that made success. But I think even with that, I think it still was a machine that had a successful legacy behind it. And, it still is holding up Nintendo's kind of philosophy for, quality and fun games that can be shared, by the family, people young and old. And, it'll bring fun and enjoyment to their hearts. It still stood for that despite whatever position it is in the console race or whatever. That and the 3DS still pretty much embodies Nintendo's philosophy of fun. And Satoru Iwata as a CEO also embodied that through his directs and his Iwata Asks shows, which, are absolutely fantastic, really. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't crying or anything, but it did hit me kind of hard, especially after another loss of a person with cancer recently. And it's happened quite a few times with me that I've lost a loved one to cancer. So, in all honesty, the feeling I have is sadness. I think I've kind of run out of tears in that respect. But it is very sad that he is no longer with us. There is something that really touched me in a good way. Someone took a picture, I have to try and remember his name, but he actually tweeted it, of a picture of Nintendo's Kyoto Research Center on a rather cloudy day. It's been almost cloudy everywhere. It was pretty cloudy over in London, but it was cloudy over in Kyoto as well. But there was a little hint of a rainbow sort of coming from the right side of the research center and sort of arcing up into the clouds. And it was a very touching moment, especially that day when the news was announced. And it does kind of remind me almost of one of Nintendo's mottos, which was leave luck to heaven. And I think we were all, as gamers, very lucky to have a personality such as Satoru Iwata. Essentially bringing joy into our hearts through video games. And he will be sorely missed. Of course, I also offer condolences to his loved ones, his families and those who were close to him within the company and without, and send my healing thoughts to them. And, hope he's gone to a better place, which I'm sure he has. Anyways, that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching, if this is in video form. And, well, like I always say, keep on playing. And especially, keep on having fun doing so.